Mr. Senator, are you with Senator Tom Cotton on this? He wants a much, much stronger response to the Iranians. Are you with him?
I am, and I think that there's a couple reasons why we're seeing what we see. You know, strength is its own deterrence, and when you don't enforce the sanctions like the oil sanctions on Iran, they have literally hundreds of millions of dollars to spend funding terrorist activities like Hamas. And what's the real world result of that, Stuart? It's, you know, children being killed, people being decapitated. We actually were in a private screening of some of the horrific scenes earlier today. All the senators were invited. I mean, this is terrible stuff. This is a terrorist organization that's funded by Iran. And so when they're attacking U.S. interests, I mean, we have to make sure we respond to that and make sure it doesn't happen again. If you want to prevent escalation, Stuart, the way you do that is you have a response that makes sure that they don't continue to do what they're doing.
So that's what I was going to say. The war at this point has not fully extended into Lebanon or into the Gulf. Maybe our restraint is responsible for that lack of expansion of the war. What do you say to that?
Well, I don't want to see a broader conflict. I think that's the goal, hopefully, of everybody here. But if Iran thinks that they can sort of take these shots at our military installations and, heaven forbid, our soldiers, that is how this thing will escalate. And we don't want to see that. But Iran has to understand they don't get to do this. And we have to cut off the money. We got to stop releasing billions of dollars to this. You know, the number one state sponsor of terrorism in the world is Iran. And they have to know the United States means business.
Got it. Mr. Senator, you are trying to get back pay for the soldiers who were discharged for not getting the COVID vaccine. The military wants them to come back into the service. But I have to ask you this. What happens next time if there's another pandemic and the death rate from that pandemic is 20 or 30%? Would we allow free choice? You don't have to get the vaccine in that circumstance. Would you do that?
Well, I think we always have to make sure we protect people's freedom of, you know, religion, right? Under the First Amendment, people can object to sorts of things. That would be obvious. But let's deal with this. This was a vaccine, Stuart, that it didn't prevent transmission. They knew that. And you're talking about, you know, the death toll for people who were in their 80s was much different than kids who were 8. Yet the response here was the same. The Biden administration politicized this. They did it with CMS, where you had healthcare workers fired. They did it with OSHA, that went into the private sector. They were trying to force a medical procedure on 100 million people. When I was AG in Missouri, we won that case in the Supreme Court. And here we're talking about the military setting. So for those individuals who were fired, essentially, they were discharged and disrespected. They volunteered for this country. We ought to be asking them to come back. They ought to get back pay, full restoration of rank, and by the way, an apology. We have readiness issues. We have recruitment challenges right now, Stuart. We have it across the board, including in the Army. So I think they ought to be recruiting these folks, and we ought to be apologizing to them for this really political act, is what it was back, a couple of years ago now.
You want back pay and reinstatement of rank and an apology. What have you heard from the Pentagon?
Well, I asked Secretary Austin this. I served on the Armed Services Committee, asked him about this. He was defiant in that they're not going to go do that. We've seen now this letter go out by the Army, but it doesn't go far enough. We're asking questions. Are you going to give back pay? Are you going to restore rank? Are you going to give an apology? And so we'll wait and see. Early December is when we're hoping to get a response. But I'm not going away on this. I mean, we have real readiness challenges. There are 8,000 people were fired. These are heroes who volunteered to serve their country. They deserve better than that, and we got to stay on this.
Fair point. Eric Schmitt, Missouri Republican. Thanks for joining us, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good to be with you.